Hey y'all! This episode contains references to parent loss, child loss, miscarriage, and suicide. And while we cannot overstate how important it is to talk about these openly and freely when talking about grief, we also really need to encourage you to take care of yourself this week. So if you need to just catch us next week, we love you, we hold space for you, and we'll see you next week. You're listening to I Have Given My Answer with Liz Gillum of E616 Consulting. If you're ready to take part in the conversations that give Black women the comfort, the community, and the confidence to live our lives freely, recognize our true worth, and embrace softness, and I know you are, then you are in the right place. I am your host, and you can join me each week as we talk honestly and authentically, freely, and in our own words. There is no one here to disappoint, no one here to judge, just Black women supporting other Black women. If you are ready for that community, then step into the right place. Hey everyone, welcome back to this week's episode of I Have Given My Answer. Listen, I've got my friend Dee Anaya here with us today from Adventures of Grief Girl. She is the founder and creative grief guide. Not only that, she is a mom, an educator, a grief coach. She's a parental advocate for families with deaf or hard of hearing children, but also an amazing artist. She's a writer, and she's just magical, y'all. She comes in with a raw vulnerability that I cannot wait for you to engage with. I love her very much. She loves you all very much. And I can't wait for you all to hear what she has to say as we talk about grief in the Black community today. Let's get into it. Hey, Dee.
Hey, I'm so happy to be here with you today.
Thank you for being here. You know, you and I have talked a little bit about how 2023 is about giving back to our sisters.
Absolutely.
I feel like if I'm going to give, let me give to my sisters.
That part.
And let's give to each other. And so I know so many dope Black women, and I want us to talk to each other.
Mm-hmm.
I want our listeners to hear this, and I want them to feel these connections because we all have so much more to us than what we do and what we produce.
Right.
And I want to create a space where we can exist outside of productivity.
Whew, heavy sigh.
Come back. You can't fall.
I'm about to fall out already.
But yes, it is important to me that we have a space where we can exist outside of what we can produce and what we can do for others. And I think it's time to pour back into ourselves. Right. And so that's why we're here. It's what we're doing. The listeners have already heard that from me in the first episode, but anybody who's just joining in this episode or whatnot, I wanted to make sure that they knew what we're here for, just to have comfort and conversations, confidence, and community. Those are the things that we're big on here at I Have Given My Answer. So, Dee, now that you are here, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm Dee Anaya. I am an artist by nature. And, I've done many things, but my work right now is centered around grief for the last, I don't know, the last 9 years, just because of the trauma, but, out in the public for the last 5 or 6 years. Like, I founded Adventures of Grief Girl because, there wasn't a lot of support that I could find that was for Black folks, but it was also not religious. So I kind of had to create this space for myself to just be in. And then I just started talking, and then I just started creating art, and I started putting it on Instagram, and I started, and then, here we are many years later. I've done some rather large installations, grief installations here in my town in Santa Fe. I've gotten to work at Meow Wolf, the premier interactive art space that is incredible. They keep inviting me back. So I assume that, we're doing something good. And I get to be in these really creative and beautiful spaces, but I also get to talk about things that are so serious, like death and dying and grief. And my main focus truly is bereaved mothers. But, as we've entered wild and crazy Mad Max times, it's for everybody. And I before would really, be in this place where I'm encouraging bereaved families or moms to build play into their lives as ritual and as a form of healing, and not just, oh, I'm taking a break from my work. This is life work. And so looking for joy in, because we have to look for it when something so traumatic happens, and being able to pick it out and point it out and say, hey, this is the thing I can grab onto that does bring me a little bit of comfort, that does bring me a little bit of ease, that makes this a little lighter. It's not less hard, but when you can spread around your load, it's easier to carry. And so, it doesn't get any lighter, it doesn't get any less painful. It just, if you can distribute the weight of it evenly, then that's where you have room to breathe, and you have room to heal, and you have room to recognize what those things look like for you, you know? And so, I think across the board, we just need that in our lives, being able to have spaces that we can talk about morbid shit and coexist in, like, yeah, I know what I said is really dark and it sounds awful, and the power of and
Yeah.
I have to live with this, and I have to find a way to live with it, not a way to get rid of it. So I
Right.
think, a lot of times, in my work where we are focused on, oh my God, people are always that outside impetus of, you need to get over this, and you need to put this down, and you need to leave this behind, and they have a list of what you need to do. Meanwhile, they're not carrying what you're carrying.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they have no idea what you've been through. Like, and because we're just now, I would say, second generation of us as Black women being able to freely go to therapy and not feel shat upon because we're doing that, second generation. So it's not, it's new, it's relatively new. And it's relatively new for us as Black women to be full on parenting by our, like, in a way that we want to, not in what was given to us.
A whole other
Right.
episode, girl.
I'm gonna come back because, but again, in that though, there is grief. And so, and that's why I bring it up, because, it's not solely specifically for a death. And so, in our community, it's buck up, you keep going, you strong, you this, be strong for the family, be strong for this. And my question is always, who is being strong for me? Who is there catching me when I'm doing all this strong, when I'm the glue that is holding everything together? What's my backup plan? you know well, who can I turn to? And there are people who have, a village. I'm not that person. Like, I have had to build things on my way down this road for myself, and ways for me to, like, heal myself,
Yeah.
and like reaching out even just to strangers, because I wasn't supported by my family. So this is my work. And I kind of do that through art, and I do that through, I talk a lot about movies and like how we're portraying grief right now. So, like, just everything. I've always been an artist. I've always been very interested in healing. So, I went to massage school, and I did that for a very long time. I'm almost in my 22nd year of body working. And So, it's all of these things are really connected.
I love what you said about the collective and these Mad Max times, because what I don't think people are really talking about, I think in this space of the gaslighting around, well, the pandemic's over, get over
Right.
it.
Meanwhile, people are still sick as hell.
People are still sick as hell, all the time. And, that coupled with the fact that things are never going to go back to the way that they
Right.
were, there is a collective notion of grief that must be addressed.
Absolutely.
Like everything else is falling on the shoulders of Black women. We don't get to fully grieve because we have to keep going to work. We have to keep raising our kids. And then when they come home, we have to be their teachers. And we have to we don't have a second to stop anything. And with the disproportionate amount of loss that the Black community has had, on top of grieving the almost figurative, my God, when do we get to grieve the literal?
That part.
And without safe spaces to do that. And I think it's especially important that you said without the tint of religion. So important to have those spaces. So I want to thank you for the work that you do, but also for what you have done for me in my life in showing how grief is not at all pretty, but it is not something to shy away from. It is something that we incorporate and move through, because the only way to get to the other side is to get to the other side. It's like quicksand, the more you fight it, the further down you fall. And you have shown me through your art and aside from your work, just you as a person and showing up as my friend, you have shown me, just existing, you have shown me that sometimes most times it does suck.
Yeah, it sucks, y'all.
But there is still beauty in just being here. And I thank you for that, because it's so important to know that everything doesn't have to be all or nothing.
That part, I think yes. Yes. And, I'm always like really overjoyed to hear that, because sometimes I think I'm just in the hamster wheel, just, bumping my gums for no reason, because I don't hear from aside from, the people I have constant contact with, and we are always talking about grief. That's one thing. But, we are the death workers, the grief workers, the practitioners who have gone through some very serious things, who have turned around and they're like, you know what? Community, y'all need our hands right now. So, here they are. And it a lot of times feels like it's falling on, a populace that rejects the idea that they can be in pain, but also they can acknowledge what that pain is without being called weak, without being made to feel shame, without being made to feel like they've let their God down. Woo! And I'm just like, listen, God don't need a spokesperson. We're part of the universe. Period. We didn't need anybody's stamp of approval to be here. And therefore, you can tap in at any time you want to. You don't truth at the end of the day, you don't need an elaborate ritual. You don't need any of this other stuff. You are connected, period, by breath, by water, by earth, by fire, all of it is right there with you all the time. And so we're looking for a savior when we need to activate. And so when we can't find those nuggets of joy, we can't find that's the depression, that's the grief, that's the human experience. That is it. There's no logicking yourself out of this. You've got to sweep it under the rug. You lose your job. There is a natural consequence from that. I feel really, you feel some kind of way like, oh, and you have a reaction. The shit's in your body, it's in your speech, it's in everything that we do, as human beings. This is a human experience. It's not something we keep trying to other ourselves from this when, and which is such a paradox, because when you watch movies and the glorification of the dying and all the things, it's all there.
Yep.
But they skip right over what the consequences are of trauma. These are what the consequences are of trauma. This psychological fallout that we're seeing is the consequence of being fucking holed up for 2 years straight without adequate mental health care. Without any kind of care. So, it's not over. They can say, however they want to say, but the flu is still hanging on, and it's becoming the norm now. And so we get into these places where, like, there are some things that we will willingly accept as our conditioning and other things that we won't.
Two things that you said that have kind of come together for me. You started off saying that you kind of feel like you're just out here and no one's listening, and that the death workers are doing this work that often doesn't feel heard. While at the same time, you mentioned that we don't really stop and look at where we are in this circle and in this trauma and what we need. And something that Brene Brown said that I read a few years ago that like smacked me in the face. But she's like, so often we want to help others. We feel useful when we help others, but we look down on ourselves when we need help.
That
You're really looking down on the people you're helping. And you really need to investigate.
And you need to unpack that, because it's true. Because it's like, I shouldn't need help. Yeah, it's okay. You need help, sis. It's fine.
You just mentioned that. And knowing that, like, we don't have to other ourselves for needing help. It's okay if we have that space where we need to just be supported.
Right, but we are in this society to where, like, the perception is, as Black people, that we can't be looking for handouts, and we can't be, we're shat on for needing help in a country that created this position for us to need help, so they can look like they gave us something. The gaslighting, I want, I desire to have these spaces, this comfort, this, like, I don't want to feel like I'm just drowning here. And that, like, I can't reach out because, oh my God, how are they going to see me? Fuck that. I don't give a damn. Because as much helping as I do, regardless of how I'm feeling, regardless of, what's going on in my life, I show up to help folks whenever I can. And, I've gotten better about saying no to, like, the things that I know I can say no to. And that is frivolous things. It's like, I'm not responding to text messages from people who have wronged me. I don't care. Because, you caught me in this place where I'm at. I'm like, you know what? You ain't been here all this time. I've been available. I've been, pleasant and agreeable. And you done wronged me repeatedly. Get out of my face. That's what you can do for me. Go live your life and be happy. Go be happy. Because that's what, at the end of the day, that's what you really want to do. And I'm going to release you from any guilt, shame, or otherwise or obligation that you might feel you need to pay to me now. Go away. Go away.
It's that, it's that releasing of those toxic bonds and of partners, of friends, of family, of ways of being that we have taught that we have to live through. Do you, in those spaces, even where it's necessary, how do you find that you grieve those separations, those relationship ties?
Oh, that's, for me, is such a heavy question, just because, like, I feel like I've been grieving someone my entire life.
Oh,
So when I was born, my mom lost her mother. I was 2 months old. And so I was raised in my mother's grief
oh,
over losing her mother.
yeah.
And then my father left when I was 5. And after the fact, I figured out that it was necessary, but I was 5. I don't understand things as I do right now.
Right.
And, and I can look back right now and applaud the both of them for not going forward, and not making, because who knows what our life would have been had he stayed. He was a functional alcoholic. My mother also, there was a lot of things going on in there. And then, so a lot of my grief around my father was when he was alive and well. He was alive and well, but our relationship was not a father-daughter relationship. It was I have my mama in my ear yapping about what a horrible black man he is.
Mm.
And he's so sorry, and he's so this, and he's so that, and all the while she was a lot of things as well.
Yeah.
So you out here calling the kettle black, ma'am. And so, and I didn't realize that until I was a teenager. And then when I was a teenager, she remarried, and then this man died 4 years later, and we had a spectacular relationship. It was the first time I really saw my mom actually happy. Her needs were taken care of emotionally. He was an excellent provider. He stepped right in and was like, I'm your daddy. And he acted like it. Like, he went to my basketball games. He went to every show I was in. He drove me. He picked on me. Who are you going to ask for a ride if I'm not here? And I'm like, that's a fucked up joke to be asking me. I'm finna call you. Quit playing with me. And then he died like a couple years later. So, traumatic. And so watching my mother be a widow, and then me again being fatherless.
Yeah.
And then and then my brother went to jail. Like, I felt so abandoned in my home. And then my mom got sick. So then I was like caretaking for her. I was a teenager.
Right.
I was 18 years old, barely graduating high school, taking care of a whole house by myself because my mother had been put on disability. And then her family started acting crazy, and her sister was like, your mom over there acting like she's sick. And I was like,
wow.
I live with her. This is not an act, y'all. Like, this is not an act. So it was that bang, 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 one thing after another. And then, meeting my spouse, and then us, our first baby, we had a miscarriage. And then our second daughter was born with a disability, and then she died. And then our son, even in between the dying part, my son was born. And then immediately somebody brought RSV to our house. We were back in the hospital. He was 5 days old on oxygen. And I'm like standing over his bedside praying every day that this baby don't die. And so for 5 days, and I was in there by myself with him. And I'm like, it was something traumatic had happened between me and my mom, even that, she went crazy mentally. She just went someplace and had decided that my spouse was going to Lacey Peterson me.
Oh, baby.
Mind you, I've got a 2-year-old that I have appointments for 6 days a week almost. And there's people in and out of my house like all the time. The government, they write things down about us, which, that was part of our life.
Yeah.
Like, every day somebody was literally watching us. So we couldn't step a hair over the line. And that's like also me dealing with my upbringing. Just my whole parenting journey has been filled with grief. And so, like, various types of grief, and like, it's so difficult to like deal with one thing at a time, because your clock starts over. You just hella triggered every time. And you got folks looking at you like, what's wrong with you? Why are you not enjoying your life? And I'm like, here I am encouraging people to do this. And it's like, they don't see it. It's like, they don't see the work that I've done. And all of this work has benefited me first and foremost. It's the reason I'm still here. Because otherwise, where does all of that rage go? Where does all of that sadness go? What do you do with all of that? Where do you put it?
And who do you talk to as a Black woman?
Exactly. Who do you talk to as a Black woman? And I just laid a whole bunch of stuff out for you. And your mouth was hanging open. Like, what?
You're my friend. I want you to have experienced this, but at the same time, you have taught me again that grief is nothing to be ashamed of. You can recognize and be like, you're my friend, and I wish you didn't go through that, but you are my friend, and I'm glad you're still here through that, without saying your trauma made you stronger, because no,
this is beat my ass. That's going south, child.
Helpful thing I hear people say, they're like, oh, I'm sorry you went through that, but look how strong you are. And I'm like, but there are other ways to gain strength, like
that part. And they skip over the part of a whole lot of people who don't make it out of this.
Yeah.
Because that's a real possibility. It's like, and whether people talk about it or not, I know that these are the thoughts that are going through folks' head. And again, we're so shamed into isolating ourselves and deciding that we have to see the silver lining in everything. I'm telling you right now with my own voice, it will never be okay that my daughter is dead. It will never be okay that I held her dead body in my arms. That's not okay. Now, I've held other dead bodies,
but not your baby.
But not you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's not okay. Like, that will fuck you up forever. And I know people don't want to think about lingering in the darkness forever, because that's a really long time. And why can't you just be happy? Happy about what? This bullshit we doing out here?
Make them feel better. If you are sad, they are uncomfortable.
Yeah, I didn't want to hurry it up, but it's like, if you've been around me, I laugh about plenty of shit. I do, but it's and the power of and. I carry this grief and I laugh at funny shit.
We stay laughing.
We stay laughing. And so, and which goes to speak about the medicine that we carry with us. Laughter is medicine. It's been said millions of times over and over and over. Laughter is medicine. And we need those doses of medicine, and we need those doses of dance, and we need those doses of art, and we need those doses of all of those things. The writings, the poetry, the movies, the TV show. We need those. Like, this is a big business, and we can just reach right out at the touch of a button and have it. I like to encourage people to use those things more often.
In terms of grief, but also in just the power of and is such a powerful statement that encapsulates everything that we have talked about here, but everything in your life and your work, because in grieving people that we have lost, in grieving relationships, in having those tough conversations with our elders and our family members, the power of and is such a major force in that. I can be really sad about the loss of this relationship and still keep pushing. And it
right.
I have neglected either. I am existing in the beauty of not having to decide one or the other. Like, there is a lot of surviving in that and space. I am strictly here in this space where I have just got to get through to the next moment. So often other people want you to pick a side
Yeah.
That they know it's the same as labels and everything else. They want to know where to put you. So they
That.
decide how to progress with you. And
Right.
and so we end up forcing ourselves into uncomfortable spaces and situations to make other people comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
The constant plight of the Black woman.
They need to figure their own shit out, and they need to, they're carrying shame about what we're doing because they don't know how they would handle it, or they think they know how they would handle it. And we're a representation of what the possibilities are. Who knows? Shoot, in 10 years, if I go crazy, damn, I have a good reason, y'all. I'm on 97 podcasts telling you exactly why. Shit, like the day ain't over. The day ain't over. And it's like it's without the support. It's people, lose their grip when there's no support, when there's no village, when there's no people to talk to, when there's nobody to spread that around to. I use the analogy of pallbearers. When they lift the casket, that casket is heavy, and that weight is distributed among however many people you ask to carry it, and therefore it is not heavy anymore. And so who are your pallbearers in your life? Who are these people that really and truly carry you through? And they don't have to be in a physical space. They can be in an online space. They can, occupy whatever. The possibilities are endless now. And so I like to give people options. Shoot, I'm on the internet, I always tell them, if you don't got nobody, you can text me, you can DM me on this here Instagram. Hit that little message button. I got you. And I'm going to find you somebody. I'm going to find you several people I know who you need, because I'm not one size fits all either.
Right.
Like I have everybody's tools in my toolbox now. If you need Jesus, let me get you
somebody else.
Let me get you some Bible verses to carry you to this next person. I'm going to give you their number. Call these people. This is the group that might be a good fit for you. Because at the end of the day, I want you to heal. I don't want you to heal how I need you to heal. I don't need it to look like something that is what I'm doing. Because I don't know what your trauma is, all of it.
Right.
So I know what the impact is. I know, usually it's just the death of somebody, or, some traumatic event like an accident or something like that. So we know right now why all of this other stuff is getting unearthed, but I don't know what that other stuff is about. And believe you me, we have to filter through all of the unresolved things when we have something else that's super traumatic that happens to us, because it's like an earthquake and it shakes up everything. And so, I gave you my list of things that I have gone through before the death of my daughter.
Right.
That, I feel like is the straw, that done broke my back, y'all. I'm the camel, by the way. So, it's like, and then what I've also noticed in the last, 5-6 years is that you can tell people exactly what's wrong with you. You can tell people exactly what you're going through, and they will dismiss it. They will downplay it. They will ignore it. They will avoid it. And you should just, and at least, they will at least you to the astral plane, my child, because they need to stop playing. Stop playing with me.
Yeah, they will
better place you. Woo, Lord, they will better place you. Well, what time does the train leave? Because I too would like to be making an appearance in the better place. Thank you so much.
The everything happens for a reason crew.
Ooh, the everything happens for a reason. Yes, sometimes the reason is just it's shitty. I'm not looking to become an archangel here, folks. I'm just trying to enjoy my damn life. Be a woman.
Yeah.
I don't know. Shit. Enjoy my existence.
Yep.
And there's no room for us to say that we're not enjoying this. There's no room for us to be like, you know what? Somebody's like, mama, and this is hard. So there's a lot of grief in there in Black motherhood that we're not addressing, that my mother never got to address. Like I can see it so clearly now. I can see it so clearly now being separated and estranged from her. I can see everything really clearly now. Like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And I'm not a person who's going to tell you to forgive anybody, but you can find some understanding. You can find some like, oh, okay, this is some shit I can take out of my purse now because I get it. I don't have to be mad about that. I can take that off my list.
Right.
And so, it's you get a lot of freedom when you have decided to cut off relationships like that. I really had to go get a permanent restraining order. It was that bad. And it was not a decision that I made lightly, but it was not a decision that I hesitated on.
Exactly.
She's not interested in changing because she doesn't think she did anything wrong. And you cannot convince people who know everything to insert any new information.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not about to spend my energy, my good energy that I have left for the rest of my time here, begging somebody to see me and begging somebody to love me, particularly not my mama. Because my kids don't have to beg me to love them all day, every day, in everything that I do. That's just what it is.
Right.
And we're going to go on about our business.
If you had something to leave, what would be that ice cube, that nugget for them?
Gosh, I definitely would have to say working on trusting themselves and trusting their ability to make the best decision for their own and highest good. Because that's where I think resilience lies, is in flexing that self-trust muscle of like, I've made the best decision I could possibly make for myself and my family, first and foremost. And that's the only thing you need to worry about. You don't need to worry about what everybody else is going to say, do, think, or whatever about what you're doing. Create your life how you want to live, and trusting that it is for you. And it will always be for you. And there will be ease in that. When you do that, there's so much more ease. I find that when we are struggling with concepts and trying to integrate new patterns in our life, it's usually we're struggling against what we have either been taught or what outside people are saying that we should do. And that's where we spend a lot of energy, and we need to let that shit go. Like, you know what feels good to you. Say yes to that. Say yes to that.
Y'all, thank you so much for listening to that conversation between me and Dee this week. We hope that it was validating for you. We hope that it was encouraging for you. We hope that you felt seen, heard, and a little bit more understood this week. If you haven't already joined our email list, go ahead and do so at www.e616consulting.com. Dee and I have come together to work on some more resources that can help you as you process your grief, regardless of what that grief is celebrating. Thanks so much, and please don't forget the power of and. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of I Have Given My Answer. This week's episode was produced by Oz Longworth Jr. of Longworth Media Solutions. We hope that you have been reminded that you are enough. Be sure to come back next week where we'll have another conversation to remind you just how wonderful you are. We here at E616 Consulting keep Black women grounded in love through community, comfort, and confidence. And we can't do that without you. We can't wait to hear how this episode touched you because we know it moved our souls. Sis, you are enough, and we love you for it.